Hey, how's it going, YouTubers? Been obviously quite some time since I've uploaded a video. Happy New Year to everyone, if anyone happens to tune into this channel. Hopefully that 2021 can bring us bigger and brighter things. Obviously 2020 has sucked, and I kind of feel that 2020 is going to be like Fight Club. No one's going to want to talk about it. Anyways, I do apologize for not uploading a video every week or as often as I would have liked, but unfortunately life has just been way too hectic for me. Enough excuses, on to week 17. We finally made it to the final week of the NFL regular season, and what a wild, strange trip it has been for many, many teams. Obviously I'm rocking my Broncos hat, and I have a sweater. You can't really see it that great. I'm a huge Broncos fan. I'll date back to like the 90s, whatever the case may be. Is obviously they had a very poor 5 years since they last won the Super Bowl, which is hard to believe it's been that long since Peyton led us to that team. Well, it was our defense, but obviously having Peyton Manning obviously kind of really helped us get to that Super Bowl victory. So I'm very glad and grateful I got to watch and see that. Hopefully 2021 can bring us back into at least a wild card position, because obviously with Mahomes at the helm with the Kansas City Chiefs, we're not taking that division anytime soon, and he's locked down I think for another 10 more years, if something like that. So if you're a Kansas City fan, be very happy right now, because you guys are going to be in control of that division for many, many years to come. Anyways, let's get to it. This is going to be my predictions for Sunday's most anticipated week ever, because there are just so many different playoff scenarios that can help, or that can potentially be a factor. So every game counts, and if one team loses, it can affect another team winning. If both teams lose, it can still affect both those teams. So there's just so many different scenarios. It's hard to believe that we're in the final week of the season and there's still nothing really set in stone, other than the Chiefs obviously getting the bye week in the AFC. So let's start here. So a very big game, I do believe, will be the Dolphins and the Bills. A big game for both those guys. Now, unfortunately, Ryan Fitzpatrick has tested positive for COVID, so he will not be participating. So they will have to rely on Tua to potentially get them into the playoffs, because as of right now, I'm not sure if they're in or not, because there's still a lot of 10-win teams. And it's hard to believe we could have 11-win teams not get into the playoffs, but yet, if you look at the NFC East, there could be a 6-win team get the division. It's crazy. Anyway, so the Dolphins at the Bills. I believe the Bills are going to have enough momentum behind them, and no disrespect to the Dolphins, they have been playing very well this year, but I'm going to say that the Bills lock down for sure that number 2 seed at least, pending the outcome of Pittsburgh, and see how they play out. But I do believe the Bills will take this game. The crazy thing is, like I said at the start, is that even if the Dolphins lose, if another team happens to lose, that could still help them and get into the playoffs, because there's just, like I said, there's so many different scenarios that could play out. But I believe the Bills will take this matchup. The next one's going to be the Falcons taking on the Buccaneers. Now, obviously, the Buccaneers don't have much to play for, because they're already locked in at that number 5 seed. They can't go any higher, and they can't go any lower. So, to me, do you play Brady that much if you guys are winning? Do you take him out, let him rest? Because he's obviously going to play again next week in the wild card matchup, depending on who gets that 4th seed. I believe the Buccaneers are going to win this with or without Brady, depending on how much time he is in the game. For the Falcons, you got to think this is a lost season. I mean, started off 0-4, 0-5, and things just really didn't get better. So here's hoping for a better 2021, Falcons fans. Cowboys at the Giants. It's going to be a very intriguing matchup, because technically the Giants could get the division. If they win and Philadelphia beats Washington, they could get the NFC East as a 6th team, as I just mentioned previously. So they have a lot of momentum, but will they beat the Cowboys? And it's really up in the air. I feel like both these teams are really going to be playing really hard, because, like I said, the Giants still technically have that slim margin chance to get that division. So they're going to want to play as best as they can to upset the Cowboys, who I'm guessing are favored in this matchup. And hard to believe that we're in week 17 talking with the Cowboys as a 6-win team fighting for a division crown. I never would have guessed it. I thought that by like week 12 or 13 they were basically done, but they had some type of heart or some type of swing, whatever the case may be, and they're fighting for their playoff lives now. So what a strange situation it is for both these teams. Like I said, they're both under 500, and one of these teams could potentially get that division title. So it is unbelievable. 2020 has been pretty wild. The Jets at the Patriots. Both teams out of a playoff contention. The Jets managed to squeeze in 2 wins. I honestly thought they were probably going to go 0-16. They did not seem like a team that wanted to show up at all. but they knocked off a couple of teams a couple weeks ago, so they have 2 wins. They're now 2-13. But I just think the Patriots are just that much better, or a little bit better than them. I'm not saying they're going to be Super Bowl contenders anytime near, because it seems to me, in my opinion, and feel free to disagree, that the Patriots needed more Brady more than Brady needed the Patriots, because Brady's headed to the playoffs and New England isn't for the first time since, I think, the 08-09 season, when they did have 11 wins under Matt Castle, but still couldn't pull it off. So it could be one of those another fluky years, just like it was here. The next matchup is another game featuring 2 teams that are out of a playoff spot, with the Minnesota Vikings taking on the Detroit Lions. Basically just playing for pride now. So I'll give the edge to the Vikings. No disrespect to the Lions. It's just that it seems like they're just stuck in like the worst division. Like, no matter whether they get 8 wins, 7 wins, whatever the case may be, it's just like, well, you can't really fight for a wild card spot because you have Green Bay, you have Chicago, and Minnesota. Even though they are going to finish with a below 500 record, the past 2 previous seasons they did make the playoffs, so they are a decent team. And obviously Cousins can't be that horrible of a quarterback if he led this team to 2 straight playoff appearances. So I'll give the edge to the Vikings to finish things off in Week 17 against the Detroit Lions. This is going to be very, very interesting with the Ravens taking on the Bengals. Obviously, the Bengals are way out of a playoff spot, and Joe Burrow less. And the Ravens are still fighting to get into a wild card position, because they're not going to get the AFC North crown, because that already went to the Steelers. I'm still going to give the edge to Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. They haven't played perfect, but they're above 500 and they're still fighting for a playoff spot. So they're not playing terrible. They obviously, there's not much else to say. I'm sorry for the little pause. I'm shooken up. I'm not really sure what else to say about the Ravens. They're a decent team. They're not the 2019/20 Ravens when they went 14-2 or 15-1, whatever the case may be, and then got knocked out. But they're a good team. As long as you have Lamar Jackson under center, he could be dangerous, whether it's running around, throwing the ball, kind of like Mahomes, or just taking off for like a 50-yard gain. Who knows? So he's a very dangerous quarterback, and I could see the Ravens pulling this one out. The Steelers at the Browns. Now this is going to be interesting for both teams. Apparently the Steelers feel comfortable enough heading into the postseason to rest Roethlisberger for their final matchup, even though there's still a little bit at hand, because I'm not sure who's going to really lock down that number 2 seed, whether it's going to be the Steelers or the Bills. You would almost think that if you wanted to get that number 2 seed, that you'd want Roethlisberger playing, but apparently Tomlin or whoever made that decision said it. No, we're in the playoffs. We already won the division. Let's just rest some guys and we'll go from there. They could get down to the 3rd seed if they lose to the Browns, and the Browns, just like the Ravens, are fighting for a playoff spot in the wild card position. So it's going to be a very interesting matchup. I'm going to give the edge to the Browns. I never would have thought I'd ever say this, that the Browns could be in a playoff position, because I thought that they would just be on this losing streak of missing the playoffs forever, because it feels like it's been forever since they last made the playoffs. But I'm going to give the edge to the Browns in this one, and they could easily be the number 5 or number 6 seed in the AFC. Hard to believe. Packers at the Bears. I think this is going to be a very interesting matchup, a very close matchup, because both teams are still fighting to earn what they want. The Packers, even though they have the number 1 seed in the NFC, they haven't secured that first round bye. So they definitely want to get at this win against the Bears, or hopefully New Orleans can lose in their last game against the Panthers in order to secure that first round bye, because the playoffs this year are a little different. Normally in the past you'd had the number 1 and number 2 seeds respectively in both conferences get a rest, but now that they had the actual wild card team in the matchup, the number 2 seed still has to play in the wild card matchup, or the wild card round. Hard to believe you're a number 2 seed. You could have like 12 or 13 wins and still be in a wild card game. It's unbelievable this year. But I'm going to give the edge to the Packers. They've just proven time and time again that you can't ever doubt Rodgers. He's a very good quarterback. He's proven it time and time again, and apparently he's in the conversation of being in the MVP, which isn't shocking. I mean, he could have a 13-3 team for the 2nd year in a row, and that number 1 seed could be a big help in the long run. Granted, you don't have the fans, but you still have home field advantage. But is it really home field advantage? It's up in the air. It's really hard to say. But they're a very good team. I'm going to say that they will knock off the Bears in their final matchup of the regular season. The Chargers at the Chiefs. Again, both teams not really having much to prove or do anything, because the Chiefs, like as I mentioned previously, already locked down the number 1 seed and the first round bye in the AFC. And the Chargers are out of a playoff spot, but they obviously have one more victory than my Broncos, so good on them. And Herbert seems like to be a very good franchise quarterback going forward. I think he's already set the record for most passing touchdowns by a rookie, so good on him. Congratulations, LA. You did a good pick on getting that guy. But I'll give the edge to the Chiefs anyway. Titans at the Texans. Now, maybe a year ago we'd be saying, well, these two teams could be fighting for a division crown or whatever the case may be, but the Texans have, because of their horrible start to the season, as just like the Falcons, just couldn't get that momentum behind them enough to secure, because at the start of the season I would have predicted them honestly to at least get a division crown or at least fight for a wild card spot. But they have proven that, or they've just gone to show that no one is perfect and they are human after all. And the Titans, they're fighting for that AFC South crown with the Colts. It's too bad that those two teams couldn't have battled it, because I'm sure that would have been one heck of a game for both those teams for at least one of those teams to get that crown. I'll give the edge to the Titans in this one. I say they take this matchup, and going forward, if you're a Texans fan, maybe 2021 will bring better news, who knows, or better games. Just a shame that this happened this year, because it seemed like they just fell apart after that Hopkins trade. Now, speaking of the AFC South, this is the other intriguing matchup, which has the Jaguars heading into Indianapolis to take on the Colts. As I previously mentioned, the Colts are still fighting for a division crown. If they win and the Texans happen to beat or upset the Titans, they would automatically get that division crown. If both the Titans and the Colts win, I'm not sure who gets that title. I do believe they're still fighting for that fourth spot in the AFC, because I'm not sure if they're going to catch the second and third team respectively in that conference. So I want to give the edge to the Colts in this one. I say they pull this one out. And for the Jaguars, hopefully 2021 could bring better signs. I honestly thought probably about 3 years ago, when the Jags made that incredible run and then they ended up losing to the Patriots in the AFC Championship game, I thought that was like a start of things to come. But it seems like they've gone backwards, if anything. It's like you take one step forward to go that, and then you take 2 steps back the next 2 seasons. So will 2021 bring better games? Who knows? But as long as you're in the same division as the Titans and I guess the Colts, it's going to be a real tough ride. And if the Texans happen to turn things around, you guys could be at the basement. I'm sorry, but it's possible. Seahawks at the 49ers. Now, what a strange way that the NFL gods, or whatever the case may be, is, and obviously you could blame injuries and inconsistency at the same time, but a year ago, the 49ers and the Seahawks probably would have been fighting for that NFC West crown. Now the NFC West obviously is going to go to the Seahawks in this one, because they've already claimed that division, and the 49ers are just playing for pride at this point. I mean, there's not much else they play for. They're out of their contention. But who would have guessed that? It just goes to show, just because you make the Super Bowl one year doesn't mean it's going to be a consistent thing. Minus the Patriots. Don't get me started on them. But it just goes to show that once you get to the big dance, you better bring all your guns and do whatever you can to potentially get that championship, because they talk about a Super Bowl hangover. 6 wins ain't that great. So therefore, I'll give the edge to the Seahawks. Saints at the Panthers. Now, as I previously mentioned, the Saints, despite having that NFC South crown, they are still fighting to try and get that number 1 bye week, because as I'd mentioned before, there's only one team in each conference that's going to have a rest for the wild card weekend, and then they'll obviously play once the divisional matchup starts in 2 weeks. Next Sunday. Obviously, I'm going to give the edge to the Saints. They have a lot on the go, and the Panthers are probably just playing spoilers at this point, because obviously they're not making the playoffs, and they've left nothing more than to add a loss to the Drew Brees column to potentially affect their home field and their bye week, whatever the case may be is. But yeah, I'll give the edge to the Saints in this one. I think they're going to finish the season off strong, and we'll see what the playoffs bring. Raiders at the Broncos. Now, obviously, again, I'm a huge Broncos fan, always have been. Broncos have been playing extremely inconsistent and extremely poorly. Now, I know there's a lot of people calling for Locke's head and Fangio's head and Elway's head, but you got to understand that you just have to have patience. Now, obviously, 5 years, I'm sure probably some people are probably getting a little impatient. I myself am like almost at the end of my rope. I'm like, okay, what else can we really do with the same core of management and ownership that's going to prove that we can move forward? in a positive way and get back into the playoff contention. As I mentioned before, like whether it's the NFL gods or whatever the case may be is, or inconsistency, but injuries just plagued the Broncos this year. Losing Miller before the season already started, that was a huge dip, because now offenses only have to really worry about Chubb rushing you, because no disrespect to Reed or whoever else played on the other side of the linebacker position, but they're no Von Miller. So losing him was a huge thing on the defensive side, and obviously injuries to the cornerbacks and everybody else throughout the whole team. And obviously losing Sutton after, I think, week 2 against the Steelers. He was their big guy. He was their number 1 receiver. Lost him. Now, if I had to make a bold prediction for next year, I'd say we should finish with at least an above 500 record, pending everyone's healthy. Obviously, you need to have a full training camp, and you really should have at least a few exhibition games under your belt. You can't just go into a regular season with no prep time, with no hours spent playing against another defense besides your own. Like, you need to have another team playing against them in order to figure things out. So I'm going to give the edge to the Raiders in this one. Obviously, they are pretty bitter about missing the playoffs when they have a $100 million coach and a new building and a new city and Derek Carr at the helm. But yeah, I'll give the edge to the Raiders in this one. I honestly felt that, it honestly seemed to me as a Broncos fan, ever since we won the Super Bowl back in Super Bowl 50, we've really taken steps backwards, but it seemed like every year that was going by, we went forward, because after the 2016 season, we had a 9-7 record with Trevor Siemian behind center, but we had one less win than the Dolphins did. So we still finished above 500 without Manning. And then the 2017 season came, and I think we were like 5-11, and then 2018 we were 6-10, and then 2019 we were 7-9. So I thought coming into 2020, well, we should at least finish with at least 8-8 record. Not the case. But like I said, it's just inconsistency. Injuries definitely played a major factor, because we lost Locke for a couple of games. So I would say, as a Broncos fan, let's give it one more year, a full training camp, and hopefully a couple of exhibition games under our belt in order to see how we progress. If we happen to lose all of our exhibition games and start off 2021 on like an 0-3 or 0-4 start, then I'd say, okay, we got to blow things up, because it's been almost 6 years since we've been in the playoffs. Something's got to change. But as a Broncos fan, if anyone else out there that's watching this as a Broncos fan, just have patience. Cardinals at the Rams. I personally think this should have been a Sunday night game, because one of these two teams is for sure going to make it. Potentially both will make it, depending on how the outcome, if the Bears happen to pull off an upset over the Packers. Now, for both these teams, they came off of big losses. Obviously, the Rams lost to the Seahawks, which gave the Seahawks the division crown. And the Cardinals lost to the 49ers, which I thought was a game. If I was a NFL expert or had to make a prediction, I would have predicted the Cardinals to win. But unfortunately, that never happened. I'm going to give the edge to the Rams. I mean, Kyler Murray has proven that he can win games. Obviously, the last second throw against the Bills has proven that he can step up and be that guy in the big game. But I just feel the Rams defense is just too good at this point, and I can't see the Rams losing 2 division games back to back and missing the playoffs potentially. So I'm going to give the edge to the Rams. And the last game of Week 17 is a Sunday night matchup between the Washington football team. Sounds weird to say that compared to their old name, against the Philadelphia Eagles, who have been inconsistent. If you're an Eagles fan, you got to think this year has just been absolute, because you've made the playoffs the last 3 seasons, I do believe, and now you have 4 wins on this season. It's a shame. They were a good team, but and obviously they're going to they want to play spoiler, because they're not making the playoffs. They would love nothing more than to finish the season off with a victory over a divisional rival. Depending on who starts for the Washington football team, there's speculation that Smith might start, and there might be the other guy. I wish I knew how to figure out his name before starting this video, because now I feel foolish. Anyways, I'm going to give the edge to the Washington football team. I think they will get the NFC least crown, as I'm sure many of you have heard that before. and they will squeeze into the playoffs with a 7-9 record. That is my bold prediction for Week 17. I guess only time will tell to see how I do on my picks. I'm hoping that on Sunday evening, since obviously there's not going to be any fun Monday football, I will have another video uploaded to go through my picks, and we will see you guys next time, I guess, and see how I do. Anyways, as always, stay safe, and hopefully 2021 can bring better news for myself and you at home or wherever you're watching this. And as always, take care. Oh no!